Alright guys, welcome to the Unit 1 Part 2 notes. Again, make sure your paper says 7th grade on the top and Unit 1 Part 2 notes in the middle. Okay, a couple of definitions to start. We are talking about powers and exponents in Unit 1 Part 2. So a couple of definitions. First off, powers. A power is the result of repeated multiplication of the same factor. So multiplying the same thing over and over and over is the power. Base and exponent are the two parts of a power, which we'll talk about here in a second. So, if you look down a little bit, you see we have 5 to the third power equals 5 times 5 times 5. So let's look at the different parts. First off, let's start with the power, which I labeled in red. The 5 and 3 together, so 5 to the third together, make the power. If you look in green here, the 5 is the base, and then in blue here, the 3 is the exponent. The 3 5s that are multiplied together are factors. So those are the different parts of power. If you scroll down, it says using exponents, and your directions are to write the product using an exponent. So for number 1, you see we have 43 times 43 times 43 times 43. So that's going to be written 43, and we say to the 4th power, so with a little 4 right here, an exponent 4. For number 2, we have negative 100 times negative 100 times negative 100. So that's going to be negative 100, and that's going to be to the 3rd power. Since the negative 100s we're doing the 3 of those, we put it in parentheses, so we keep the negative with it. For number 3, we have x times x times x times x times x. Okay? So even though it's a variable, nothing changes. It's still x, and then to whatever power, in this case, the 5th power. And then number 4 is a little bit harder. We have 5 times p times p times p times c times c times c times c times c. So a lot going on here. So let's just start with 5 first off. There's only one 5, so we just write the 5. We have p, there's 3 of those, so that's the 3rd power. And we have t, there's 5 of those, so that's the 5th power. Now if you look at the next part, we're going to take the power and we're going to write it in words and as repeated multiplication. Okay? So the first thing, and when I say write it in words, we're not going to really use words for all of it. So the first one would be 2.5, our base, and then we say it's to the 4th power. So that's how we're going to write it in words. 2.5 to the 4th power. Then to write it as repeated multiplication, that means we're going to do 2.5 times 2.5 times 2.5 times 2.5. Okay. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and do 2, 3, and 4 here. I know it's kind of hard to see on the video, but it's a lot easier to see on your note page. So looking down further, it says to evaluate powers with variables. So remember we talked in part 1, evaluate means that we're going to plug in the numbers for the variables and then solve from there once we have a numerical expression. So if you look at number 1, it says y to the 4th power. First thing I want to do is plug in 3 for y, and then it's going to be to the 4th power, which means I'm doing 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So if you multiply that together, you get 81. Again, realize there's no equal signs because I'm evaluating expressions. For number 2, we have 7x squared. Again, the first thing I want to do is plug in whatever my x value is, which in this case is 2. If you notice, I put parentheses around the 2. Okay, because the 2 is the only thing that's going to the 2nd power. So that means I'm going to do 7 times 2 times 2. So I write up the 2 2. So that's going to give me 7 times 4, which is 28. Again, no equal signs there because I'm dealing with an expression, not an equation. So if you flip over to the back side of your paper, you see there's a couple more examples here. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try those. Do your best. If you have any problems, just do as much as you can, circle them, and then I'll help you in class. If you look at the next part, it says using powers in formulas. So I've written down a couple formulas for you. The first one is how to find the area of a square. That's A for area equals S for side squared. So area equals side squared. A square is 2-dimensional, so we have side times side. Then we have the volume of the cube, so V for volume equals side cubed. which is we have a cube or 3 dimensions, we're going to use it in the third power. So if you look at number 1, it says find the area of a square with a side length of 8 inches. So our formula was area equals side squared. So area equals, I'm going to evaluate this equation. We're going to put 8 in for s, so 8 squared. So that means my area is 8 times 8. So my area is 64. Now, again, I can't just put 64, I have to have some sort of unit with it. So we're working in inches, and then since it's the area, it's inches squared. Or you could write that 64 square inches, either way. For number 2, it says find the volume of a cube with side length of 4 meters. So our volume formula was volume equals side cubed. I'm going to plug in 4 for s. So that means I'm going to do 4 times 4 times 4. So my volume is going to be 64. Now again, I need a unit, which is meters. And since I'm doing volume, it's meters cubed. So you can also write that 64 cubic meters. Either way is fine with me. If you look at the bottom, you've got 4 review problems, which is evaluating expressions which we did in part 1. And you're going to go ahead and do those on your own. If you have trouble with any of those, just make sure you ask during class. Alright guys, that's unit 1, part 2.